When we first purchased our RV, we really didn't fully understand the electrical systems or the options we had available to us. But after being on the road for almost a year and a half, we want to share with you what we've learned. Hi, I'm Dan. Dean is sitting this one out, and we are Rivers to Ridges RV. RVs can be pretty complicated when it comes to their electrical systems and some of the options you have available to you. That's what we want to cover today. I want to kind of, in a generally speaking, go over some electrical terms, some maybe a little bit with solar, and some options you have available to you for when you're at an RV park and when you're out boondocking. Now, right off the bat, I need to let you know that I am not a licensed electrician, and everything we talk about today is in general terms. It should be true for most RVs, but there will be exceptions to the rule. So kind of starting at the very beginning, I want to talk a little bit about electrical terms. Now, you don't have to know these things, but if you are in the future maybe looking to buy, let's say, an inverter or a generator or a solar system, you're going to want to at least know the basics and hopefully understand the definition of these terms. So let's start out with some electrical terms. The very first one that you kind of want to know or be aware of is watts. Now, watts is just a unit of power. That's all it is. The way you get watts is volts times amps, or amps times volts. And as an example, if you have a piece of equipment that draws 5 amps on 120 volts, that is 600 watts. You could apply the same concept to 12 volts. 5 amps times 12 volts is 60 watts. The next piece of this is amps. Amps is just a measurement of current. You can think of water going through a garden hose. It's just an electrical term for that. Amps is watts divided by volts. Again, another quick example. 600 watts divided by 120 volts is 5 amps. Looking at 12 volt side of things, or the DC side of things, 60 watts divided by 12 volts is 5 amps. This will all make a little bit more sense here in just a second. Volts is just a unit of voltage. Hopefully you know what voltage is. Voltage is our volts. The way you derive that is watts divided by amps. Again, a very simple example. If you have something that's 600 watts divided by 5 amps, you're going to get 120 volts. Or 60 watts divided by 5 amps is 12 volts. Now, what does this really mean, and how would you use this? I have some examples down here as well. Now, these are just examples, and they're not going to be exact figures, but it gives you a general idea. 120 volt side of things. An AC unit draws roughly 18 amps. That equates to just under 2,200 watts. Maybe like a residential refrigerator draws about 6 amps or 720 watts. A TV is about 4 amps or 480 watts. We can come over to the 12 volt side, or the DC side of things. A furnace is roughly 10 amps or 120 watts. Porch light, 1.5 amps or about 18 watts. And your water pump in your RV, roughly 7 amps or 84 watts. Now, again, you don't have to memorize this stuff. It's just something I kind of want you to kind of get a baseline. Where this comes into play, again, is if you're going to buy a solar package, or maybe a generator, or maybe an inverter, you're going to want to understand what kind of loads you can draw, what can they support, and that's where like watts comes in, things like that. So again, generally speaking, these are some terms and some examples. Now, if you want, I'm getting ready to erase this. Go ahead and pause the video, take a quick snapshot of that if you want, for reference. But what I want to get into now is some general concept of a solar panels or the solar package. So let's get on with that. I just reorganized my classroom, as you can see. Now let's talk a little bit about solar, again, at a very high level. We have our fifth wheel. You can't tell, that's a Momentum 397, and we have our solar panels on top, and we have the sun up here. We have our battery. Now, what a lot of people think, they think if the more solar panels you add to an RV, the more stuff you can run. Now all of a sudden I can run my AC, or I can run this and that all at the same time. That might slightly be true, but it's not really the case. What a solar panels are for, and all they do, is charge your battery. They don't run your TVs, they don't run your AC, nothing like that. They only charge a battery. Now what happens is solar panels take energy from the sun. They're going to come into this little small box in here called a charge controller. So all these panels will come into your charge controller, and then the charge controller is attached to your battery. And this is how your battery gets charged from solar panels. Solar panels take energy from the sun. They go through a little black box called a charge controller, and that is, its whole purpose is to charge the battery. Now what the charge controller really does, it's a pretty smart box. It's used to charge as quickly and efficiently your RV battery. If you think about it, if these were tied straight to your battery, that's not good. If a battery is already fully charged and you keep trying to charge it some more, that's not good for your batteries. So solar panels go into a charge controller goes into a battery. And again, what a lot of people think is the more solar panels you put on your RV, the more stuff you can run, the longer you can run things. And that's really not quite true. And I want to kind of try to show you an example. Hopefully I can get this across where it makes a little bit of sense. Let's say this is us. I wish I was that skinny again. I want to take a shower. Okay. Now, where does this shower water come from? All I have is a little tiny cup right here. This cup is going to be full of water. How do we fill up our cup? We have a funnel out here. When it rains, the funnel is going to collect the water and fill up our cup. Now, I want you to think about it this way. Your funnel is your solar panels. The cup is the battery. And the water coming out of our shower is anything draining off the battery. So if we had some lights on or anything like that, that's draining off our battery, and that represents the water here. So this is kind of a typical RV basic solar package. You have a very small amount of water, so you can only do so much. So what happens is this small container is so small, when we go to take a shower, we drain this water out real quick. We might drain this out in 10 seconds. So what do we have to do? We added our funnel, our solar panel. It's going to collect rain, sunlight, and recharge our cup or refill up our cup. Now, since this is such a small cup, this will get filled up, fairly quickly. And once it's filled up again, we can go ahead and take another 10 or 15 second shower. Some people have a misunderstanding. Well, let me just add some more funnels up here. I'm going to add 2 more funnels. They're also going to feed into this cup. So now what they think, because I have more funnels that collects more water, I can take longer showers. That's not the case. The cup can still only hold just so much water. When we go take our next shower, we're still going to get a 10 to 15 second shower. The only difference is now we can fill this up a little bit quicker. So yes, we did add some more funnels. We will be able to fill this up or recharge this quicker. So how do we get longer showers? What we really need is a bigger container, a larger container. Okay, so now this container might, let's say it holds 50 gallons of water instead of those 2 little cups. Now I can take a shower. Maybe I could take a 5-hour shower or 5 1-hour showers, something like that. First shower, I drain this down a little bit. Second shower, each shower I take, I'm going to drain this down some. Now what happens is the next time it rains, or maybe the next day when the sunlight comes out again, our funnels are going to start collecting that rainwater and charging up our reservoir again. Now it will take longer to charge because it's a larger reservoir, but as long as we don't draw out more from the reservoir than our funnels can put back into it, we could take showers whenever we want. So as long as the outcome is less than coming in, this will slowly charge and we'll be able to take showers whenever we want. So that's kind of the concept of the solar panels. Another name, just if you're interested, another name for solar panels is photovoltaic. Some people, you'll see the term PV. Photovoltaic, and photo and voltaic means voltage. So you may see PV when you start looking into solar as well. This is a general concept of solar, and I just kind of want you to kind of understand the basic concept. But the big thing to remember is you can't just buy solar panels. You have to also look at your battery or your battery bank, the storage capacity, the reserve capacity. There's a lot to do with that. So that's kind of solar. So now let's talk a little bit about some of your options. How is your RV set up? And how do people typically use an RV? So again, we have our fifth wheel. I bet you think that's a 397, but it's not. It's a 399. Can't you tell the difference? We have our battery in here. Now a typical RVer is going to go to an RV park. You're going to have a pedestal out here. This pedestal supplies 120 volts AC. You have a plug in the back of your RV, and you're just going to plug into this pedestal. So what is really happening at this point? We have 120 volts out, 120 volts coming in to our RV. We talked a little about inverters earlier for a second. This is also a concept of a converter. So this is my converter. Some of this power is actually going to go through a converter into my battery. A converter changes 120 volts to 12 volts. So now we can use some of this 120 volts to recharge our battery. And the rest of it will come out here to supply power to our AC circuits. And these, again, the AC circuits are like your plugs in the wall, things you would plug in. So we're plugged into an RV campground. We have the pedestal, 120 volts coming in. Everything on our 12 volt circuits, remember these are things like fans and lights, and maybe even your slides. These are all working. Also, anything in our AC circuits working as well. Again, these are anything you plug into a wall, hair dryer, maybe a microwave, you have a residential refrigerator. Everything works, everybody's happy. Now what happens if we lose this connection? We don't have 120 volts anymore. What are our options? So let's talk about that for a second. So again, we have our fifth wheel. We have our battery. We do not have 120 volts coming into the fifth wheel, but we still need 120 volts. We still want to be able to use our microwave or run some things on the AC, maybe a hair dryer or something like that. How do we get 120 volts when we don't have 120 volts coming in? So one way of doing this is an inverter. So we have our inverter. This is a little inverter box. Now the way this works is an inverter converts 12 volts to 120 volts. So it's going to take 12 volts from your battery. It will go through the inverter, come out the inverter to this goes to all your AC circuits. Again, I'm not saying AC, the air conditioner, I'm saying AC voltage, right, 120 volts. So we have a battery. Voltage from that goes to an inverter, and the inverter goes to the AC. So now we can run some things on our AC outlets. The only thing we have to worry about though is we don't want to drain our battery. We can do this all day as long as we don't drain our battery. So this is if you're out in the middle of the woods, you're boondocking, something like that. If you have an inverter, you can draw volts, or you draw from your battery, go through the inverter, and still have access to your AC. Now, one problem with this is at some point you're going to drain your battery. How do you keep from draining your battery? Another option, if you have a generator. Okay, we have a gas powered generator in the front of our RV. I can start up this generator. Actually, let me just draw this all over again to make it a little bit cleaner for you. Not a very good looking RV. So we have our generator. We're going to plug this into our RV. Now what happens? This generator is putting out 120 volts. It's coming into our RV. This is just like being at a campground, plugging into a pedestal. However, now you're out in the middle of nowhere. You're creating your own power. Now you can still run your 12 volt systems and also your 120 volt systems. So all your AC and DC appliances and equipment, lights and things like that, fans, are all going to work. This is on a generator. So that is one option you have if you're out boondocking and you need 120 volts. Now, there's another way of doing this. We already kind of spoke about this, but you also have solar. I think these are getting worse every time I draw them. So now we're out boondocking and we have solar. Again, we have our battery. We have an inverter, and we have all our solar panels, let's draw them over here, going through our charge controller into our battery. So our solar panels go through our charge controller into our battery. We're charging our battery. The battery is connected to an inverter. The inverter, we get 120 volts out of the inverter. So again, we're out in the middle of the woods. We have solar collecting energy from the sun, going through our charge converter and charging our battery. So now, theoretically, as long as we have enough solar and we don't draw too much out of the battery, we should be able to stay out basically as long as we have supplies, right? We're constantly recharging our battery. We have access to 120 volts, and we should be able to enjoy ourselves, and everything in the RV should work. And you could also use a combination of solar and a generator. So if you are out boondocking, you could use solar during the day when the sun's out. When it gets dark, if you need 120 volts or something, you could start up your generator maybe to watch TV or something like that and still charge your battery at the same time. So that's another option if you're boondocking. Now, to kind of put all this together, if this is your battery, there's a couple ways that you can drain your battery. Just by using it, it's going to have 12 volt output. You can also go through an inverter and get 120 volts output. So these are two ways to draw off your battery. One is for your 12 volt circuits, and another one is through an inverter for your 120 volt circuits. How do we recharge our battery? How do we charge the battery back up? We have three ways of doing that. We have solar. We have the RV pedestal, and we also have a generator. So all three of these can be used to recharge your battery. So those are some of the options you have available to you. Now, we We don't boondock. I don't think we have ever boondocked. We will go to a harvest host once in a while. That's on a weekend. It's usually just one night. So we don't. We do have a solar panel, and the only reason we have it is because I really wanted the inverter, and we use that on travel days. But if you're thinking about solar, thinking about a generator, it all depends on you and the way you camp or the way you RV. If you're always in a campground like we pretty much are, we really don't need solar. We're always plugged into 120 volts. When we're plugged in, that's charging our batteries. We don't need a solar panel. If we're mooch docking, we're plugged into a friend's house or a relative's house. We're drawing off of their house current or their house electricity. Again, that goes into our RV, and we're charging our batteries. Now, solar might help a little bit. Maybe it'll help speed the process up some, but again, it's really not needed. Boondocking is really when you want to start thinking about solar and possibly generators as well. So those are the options you have available to you. Hopefully this helped you out a little bit, make things hopefully a little bit more clear. Hopefully I didn't muddy up the water too much. If you do have questions, please leave them below. I'm more than happy to answer. Again, these are general terms, general concepts, but they should fit most RVs. Remember, always live life to the fullest.